Okay, we're going to dedicate our Torah to the protection of all of Am Yisrael, in particular all of our Chayalim. Bezrat Hashem should only hear good tidings for all the whole Jewish people. Bezrat Hashem. Let's sing a little niggin, get ourselves in the zone, and then start learning some strong Torah. Ayin 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 amba 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 ayin 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 amba 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 ayin 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 amba na 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 ayin 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 na 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 ayin 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 amba amba ayin 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 na 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 ya mama ya alaya ay na 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 ya mama 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 ay na 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 ya mama mama ay na 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 ya mama mama ay na 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 yam ba 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 da na 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 hayya na 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 hayya na 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 hayda na na ya mama amna ya mama mama ya mama Okay, Erev Tov, everyone, on this very, very special night. I think it's Isru Chag of the yard site of the Eish Kodesh, unless it's tonight, I think it was last night, and who I'm named after, Kleinem is Kalman Flaks, the Eish Kodesh, the Heilige Tzaddik. So his light is still shining into the world, his love. The greatest thing in the world is to teach, is to do something good for another person. So this shiur should be L'ilui Nishmato, and for the whole Jewish people. So we're continuing our explorations of Tefila. We're up to the bracha of Netilat Yadayim. We're going deep into understanding the first mitzvah that we do every single day. So we'll start with a story. The story goes that it's deep somewhere in Baal Shem Tov land. Where's that? Medbesh. And it's Shacharis. And all the Hasidim are singing the holiest time of the year. And suddenly the Baal Shem Tov goes kind of into his own world. He's flying and he's in a different world. And then he wakes up and they continue singing. After Shabbos goes out, they ask the Heilige Rebbe, what happened? And he says, the light of the west has been extinguished. The holy Or HaChaim HaKadosh, Rabbi Chaim ben Attar, has passed away. And indeed, that was that the holy Or HaChaim passed away. They asked the Rebbe, how did you know? He said that the secret of Netilas Yadayim was revealed to me at that moment, at Shacharis. You see, in every generation, there is one tzaddik who knows the secret of Netilat Yadayim, and the Or HaChaim was that tzaddik. When he passed away, the secret was revealed to me. And that's the story. And now I'm about to reveal to you the secret of Netilat Yadayim. No, I'm not. I don't know. Sorry. But we will definitely explore it together, and based on the teachings of our holy sages, we're going to go some halacha, some Kabbalah, some Chassidus, and it should be great. Okay? So let's review one beautiful teaching from Rav Schwab. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, asher kidishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu. That is a that we do before every mitzvah, except it's not really true. If you think about it, there's certain mitzvahs that we do that don't merit a bracha. Okay? For example, we have a mitzvah every day to remember Yetziat Mitzrayim. Morning and night. We fulfill it in our Kriyat Shema. But ain't nobody saying no bracha before you daven, before you do that mitzvah, right? Mitzvahs that are done with our speech and with our brain, with our machshavot, don't merit a bracha. But mitzvahs that are done with actions, with physical actions, like washing of hands, so they get a bracha. Yeah? So it says the Heilige Rav Schwab, in his beautiful teachings, beautiful sefer on Tefila, which we always quote, Rav Schwab on prayer. Often my students ask if there's one sefer that you want me to open to learn on my own. They're not zeicha to come to a shiur like this. I recommend Rav Schwab on prayer very often because it goes through the whole Tefila, not just the Amidah. His unbelievable explanations. So Rav Schwab explains that all like this, that our bodies are holy. Okay? And how do I know that? Asher kiddishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu. Every mitzvah that we do, we bring kedusha into our body. Okay? And we infuse holiness with every action. And that's why, even after we die, the body of a Yid is still holy, because it's been sanctified through the mitzvahs. A Gentile, as amazing as they are, they're going to lift up their souls through every good deed that they do. But their body is just a shell, so to speak, which is encasing the soul. But a Jew's body retains holiness even after the soul has gone to the next world. Okay? That's what Schwab speaks at length about, is the secret of Netilat Yadayim. A Jew has holiness, and that's why a Jew has the laws of washing hands and not washing hands. A Gentile is holy, and as beautiful as a person. His body is still a Gentile body, but his soul it can be lifted very high. The Gemara says it's beyond the highest level, but his body does not get uplifted. Maybe that's why we care so much about these 13 bodies that are still stuck in Gaza. I mean, logically, okay, their soul's in a different world. What does it really matter? No, but the body is still holy, and it needs to get a Kever Yisrael. And that's why we still go to Kivrei Tzadikim. Some of the holiness of that tzaddik is still infused in the body, which has been uplifted through the mitzvot that we do. And that's why we care so much about the way that we're buried. I just heard a really beautiful story at Aza 24. Just came through me that there was a Yid, and he died. And when the Chevra Kadisha saw that he was buried in the wrong spot, he was buried in where his wife's plot was supposed to be. And the man is not supposed to be buried next to a woman. So they had to dig up a whole new plot, these Chevra Kadisha guys. Normally they have the Arab guys dig the big spot and they just do the finishing touches. But they quickly realized that they had no choice. They quickly dug a whole spot and put the body in the right place. So they went and they told this to the children of this person who passed away, and they were in shock. They were totally blown away. Why? Because that person had been davening for months. He asked his children that a Jew should bury his body, build the whole burial spot should be dug by a Jew. And they went and they asked the Chevra Kadisha, and they refused. He said, no, if he's going to ask, then everyone's going to ask, and soon we're going to be having to dig all of the graves, and he refused to do it. But he wouldn't give up, and he kept davening and davening. He never gave up, and unbelievable, Hashkacha Pratis, God arranged it that Jews should be the ones digging the burial spot. And again, we might think, who cares? The soul's in heaven. But no, the body is holy. And we remind ourselves of the holiness, not just of the soul of the body, when we do Netilat Yadayim. Every time we do a bracha, we're reminding ourselves of the holiness of the guf and not just of the neshama. So that's one secret that Rav Schwab reveals to us. But I want to start from the beginning and ask yourself, as we try to do every Tefila shiur, where did this whole thing come from? What is the history of Netilat Yadayim? Okay? So the truth is, in the Gemara, it's not completely clear, it's not explicit where it comes from, but putting the pieces together, we can come up with a little bit of a story. The Pnimi Halacha, Rav Eliezer Melamed, my Rav, who I learned so much from, and in his way, succinctly sums up the evolution of Netilat Yadayim, but not starting actually from Netilat Yadayim in the morning, but starting from Netilat Yadayim before eating bread. So basically, it started with the whole body. The whole body is one unit, according to Judaism, right? Let's say you became impure from biblical times. How do you purify yourself? You got to immerse your entire body in a mikvah, right? If even one, little inch is out, then you're not pure. The body's all one unit. but comes Rashi in the Gemara in Shabbos, and he teaches us that the Chazal made a specific decree that the hands should be considered their own unit. Hands are different than the rest of the body. That started with Shlomo HaMelech. Shlomo decreed that if I touch a korban with my impure hands, and a stam yad, a regular hand, is considered impure. If I just touch a korban, it's a pasul korban. You can't use that as a sacrifice. Based on that decree of Shlomo Melech, came Beis Shammai and Beit Hillel, and they decreed that a Kohen who touches truma, holy Kohen food, and his hands were not purified, were not washed beforehand, so then it's pasul. You have to burn it. And based on that, says the Gemara in Chulin, comes Chazal and decreed, I think it's Chulin Daf Kaf Vav, Amud Aleph, that all food is considered impure until we wash our hands and purify ourselves before we eat bread. Okay, so it was a decree that led to another decree that led to another decree in the time of Chazal, which is why we have to wash our hands before we eat bread. Because, and this is really a whole different year, because all of us are really mini Kohanim. Right? Every time we sit down to have dinner, we have to remind ourselves that we're Kohanim. Based on that decree of Netilat Yadayim for bread, Chazal also enacted, says the Pnini Halacha, to wash our hands in the morning. Okay, now in the Gemara in Brachos, in two separate places, Daf Yudalad and Daf Samech discusses Netilat Yadayim, but does not give the exact history, the exact evolution that I'm spelling it out to you. But putting the pieces of the puzzle together, Rashi kind of puts this story together. Okay, so that's a little bit of the history. But let's take a step back and ask ourselves, before Chazal made all of these decrees, is there any biblical precedent? Something I always like to ask myself when I'm learning a sugya. Where did Chazal get these ideas from to make these decrees? And it's always starting, of course, from the Chumash. So do we have any precedent, A, of the hands, and B, of water in Chumash? Okay? Or Navi. So let's start with the hands. Where do we see the uniqueness, the specialness of the hands in the Torah itself? Where the hands are being used at a different level. Oh, beautiful. So the first thing that comes to mind is the Shiur, the laver, which is the big washing vessel. If you want to see a live one, you go to Machon Mikdash. They built a whole big one. Or if you're lazy, you go on YouTube and write, laver, and you can see their Google Images version. But it's definitely Gedai at some point to see that one that the Temple Institute built. It's really big and cool. But back in the day, the Kohanim were obligated to wash their hands and their feet before they did the holy service in the Beit Mikdash. So we see that the Kohanim were doing holy things, washing their hands, purifying their hands and their feet before they did their holy service. So certainly that was in the background when Chazal made this decree of us washing our hands in the morning. Are there any other ideas which come to mind? Yeah, Larry?
No, but I'm just I was thinking when the strangers, the Malachim came to Abraham.
Excellent.
But he washed their feet.
Yeah, fair. So you and Rav Shlomo think similarly. Exactly. There we go. Great minds think alike. Right? So Avram Avinu is looking outside in the desert and he sees a bunch of holy Arabs, as Rav Shlomo says it, or idolaters or desert dwellers. We don't really know, but they're wandering around and he brings them in, and the Torah says he washes their feet. Why did he wash their feet? So it says Rav Shlomo, i.e. Rashi, Rav Shlomo Yitzchaki, he's washing away their avodah zarah. Okay, they had idolatrous practices. They may have been using their feet for bad stuff, and he didn't want to bring that into his tent, so he washes their feet. Okay, it says Rav Shlomo. That's also Rav Shlomo Karlbach. That's also the idea behind when we wash our hands. We're mimicking that energy of Avram Avinu. We're washing the avodah zarah off of our hands before we start going into a meal or before we start our day. We're washing away all of those thoughts of, oh, look at me, I'm in charge of the world, or all of that animalistic energy that may have come into me, that when I'm about to jump into my steak, and I wash it away, and then I'm able to go into my day and my food in the right state of mind. So in other words, it all really began with Avram Avinu washing the feet of those holy idolaters. Now Larry's going to ask me, okay, so then we should wash our feet. Why don't we wash our feet every morning like Avram Avinu? And the answer is, I don't know. It's a good question. But I do have a custom that I made up that on the first night of Sukkot, I wash my guests' feet. I take water and I pour it over them. And we have a water fight. And it's a lot of fun.
But you're always talking now about washing our hands in the morning.
Correct. They're related concepts.
Because there are other times, like when you're entering the Knesset to pray.
Right. So I'm going to have to clarify on the halachic level, like all the different situations of washing your hands, if we have time for that. Because I'm meant to really just do Iyun and Tefila, I just want to understand. But if we have time, I definitely want to explain the difference between the different two times. But on the simplest level, there is value in washing our feet. In fact, the Kohanim used to wash their feet. But we are washing our hands because our hands are dealing with the world. We'll get back to that. That's what the Rush says. The Yadayim are askanios. The hands are the things that are interacting with the world the most. And therefore, it's most important that we wash our hands and purify our hands because our hands are the things that, nowadays, that's what we're typing with. That's what we're checking our phones with. We probably use our hands nowadays more than in any other time. And so since our hands are interacting with the world, that's what needs to be purified and sanctified. But the original energy goes back to Avram Avinu purifying those angels back in the desert. Perhaps we can suggest. Okay, there is another famous story that comes to mind. There's a few, but there's one that comes to my mind when I think of hands. Hands in the Torah being used in a holy type of way. Now that I think maybe another idea comes. Any ideas come to mind? So I'm thinking of the story of when Moshe Rabbeinu and Yoshua are fighting Amalek. And they raise their hands to the sky. And the Torah says, the Yadayim emunah. Their hands were loyalty. Their hands were faith. Their hands reaching to the heavens is that connection point between Hashem and the Jewish people. So we see the power of the hands. In fact, that brings me back to another hands. Who else is using their hands? The Kohanim. Raising their hands to bring the chef of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Interestingly enough, Baal HaTurim says Avram Avinu was a Kohen. He's on the Bechina of a Kohen. So maybe that's why he was washing the hands of those, angels. But the Kohen are using their hands to bring the blessing of God to the world.
What about Elijah?
Yeah. What did he use his hands for?
Maybe I have to study the story, but I thought that he put his hands up and the fire of Hashem came out of the sky.
It could be, you're right. I don't know. We'll go after this year, we'll do some chazara on the Eliyahu story. I remember. I'm sure there are many other times we see the power of hands. Yadayim Yadei Esav. Yadayim Yadei Yaakov. Yitzchak, right.
When Yaakov came in and to trick him and he felt...
Right, the hands. And I'm trying to remember the phrase. We'll have to think about it. The voice of Yaakov, but the hands of Esav. When he's using his hands in a negative way. Anyways, there's a lot of power in the hands from a biblical perspective. And let's just take 4 minutes to think about water. And there's a lot of places we can go with this. Where do you think Chazal got this idea of water being a purifying element? Well, the most obvious thing that comes to mind is, again, the Shiur, the washing of the hands of the Kohen. But there are other situations where water is being used as a purifying element. What else comes to mind? Noah, right? The Flaks Parsha of God restarting the world specifically through water. Beautiful. Where else do we see water as a purifying element? Okay. The red heifer is a good example. Okay. What else comes to mind? Tefila, all of the immersions of the Kohen, everyone else, and the women, it always starts with water. And maybe it really all starts, Rabbi Nachman Mibraslav teaches, it all starts from the Ruach Elokim Shas Merachefet Al Pnei Ha'am, the Spirit of God which is hovering over water. And the water would seem to exist even before the world was created. So Rabbi Nachman says that there's something about water that when you go into water, you feel like you're being recreated. You feel like everything starts again. At least for me. I try to start my morning, I go to the mikvah, it's like a restart. And actually, in this past army service, I was lucky enough that on my base they had a little swimming pool. So there wasn't much exercise that I could get in my shmirot between shifts. So in the middle of the day, I would go swimming in this little pool that the army somehow got for us, take all the bugs out. And I always felt like it was like a restart, reconnect to myself, reconnect to my body, reconnect to my soul. So there's something powerful about getting back into the water. There is such a custom, indeed.
What is that?
It's a hanhaga, it's a custom because you're just being in a bathhouse. And since one custom is even in a bathhouse, when you're surrounded by naked people, you kind of wash your hands and purify yourself. You don't do it with a bracha, it's not a halacha, it's a minhag. There are many, many different, I could think of 14 different scenarios where there's customs to wash our hands, but we're not giving a halacha shiur, so I'm not going to go into all the details. Yeah. Once it comes up, for sure. So there's a lot to unpack in the power of water and power of hands. With all that biblical background, I want to give the most classical explanations of the Rishonim as to why we wash our hands. So the most famous explanation is given by the Rosh, Rabbeinu Asher. He was a Spanish Rishon, a great Talmudist. He was actually originally from Germany. And he writes, the Fishiyadav shel Adam askanios. Because when you go to bed, your hands, they're all over the place. They're going to touch dirty, sweaty places at night. So to prepare before a person reads Shema and says Amidah, the rabbis decreed that we need to wash our hands in the morning. So it's a little bit of a practical element. And note, it's because we're going to say Shema and Amidah. In other words, the Rosh is already trying to answer a question that you might have asked yourself, which is why are we only washing our hands before Shacharis? And why not before Mincha and Mariv? Many people do have a custom to wash their hands before Mincha and Mariv, but that's a custom. There's no bracha before you do Mincha and Mariv. It's not an obligation. So why do we specifically wash our hands before Shacharis, Mincha, and Mariv? So perhaps his answer, because we went to bed, our hands are dirty, and we're going to say Shema in the morning. So maybe putting those factors together, that's his explanation, kind of a practical explanation as to why we wash our hands, right? What if a person made sure that he didn't get his hands dirty? Let's say he was wearing gloves. Right? Well, let's say he stayed up all night, a little bit more practical. So then, according to the Rosh, would you have to wash your hands? Could you say a bracha before you wash your hands, according to the Rosh, if you stayed up all night? L'ch'oira, no, you can't, because it's a practical element. Maybe you could say lo plu, we won't distinguish. But on a simple reading of the Rosh, no. In that scenario, if you know your hands are clean, so you don't say bracha. On the other hand, comes the Rashba, and he argues, again, the Gemara is unclear. The Gemara doesn't say the rationale for washing hands, and that's why the Rishonim argue about it. The Rav Shlomo ben Aderet, the holy, also 13th century, they're contemporaries. He also lived in Spain, and he argues, and he says, in the morning, we become a new creation. We're recreated. Dichtiv chadashim labkarim rabba emunatecha. Every day we're recreated. We talked about this in our Moda'ani Shiur. Our soul comes back to us. And we have to thank him. We were created to serve him. And that's why the rabbis established a bracha in the morning. We have to sanctify ourselves and specifically use a vessel. Because if it's really just about cleansing ourselves, like the Rosh seem to understand it, so then why do I need a kli? Why do I need a vessel? Why do I need to do it in this whole specific way? But since Rashba has a whole different understanding, he says, we are like the priest who would sanctify his hands before he would do the holy service, and that is why we wash our hands. So just to review, the Rashba was basically saying two separate explanations, but he's kind of putting it together. First of all, we are recreated every morning. And since our soul is coming back to us, we need to somehow kind of thank God and remind ourselves that we're here to serve Him. And so how did Chazal enact the best way to remind ourselves that we're here to serve Him? To wash our hands with a vessel in the same way that the Kohanim used to have to wash their hands before they did the sacrificial service. So using the energy of the sacrifices, the rabbis did Gzeira Shava and kind of drew it to every Jew. The implied message is, where are the Kohanim? Who are the Kohanim nowadays? We are. In other words, again, this is decreed apparently, seemingly at the end of the Second Temple era. Around the same time that Anshe Knesset Agdola is making all of the blessings and the brachas of the Amidah. So in other words, they're shifting the energy from the Kohanim, being kind of the leaders doing the holy service, to now who are the Kohanim? We are the Kohanim. Every Jew, when he wakes up in the morning and he's washing his hands every day, he's reminding himself that I am a Kohen, that I am here to serve God, to sanctify myself to do His holy service. Okay? You got the Rashba's explanation? Now, both of these are given by the Rishonim, and the Shulchan Aruch and the Poskim write, we should be strict like both of them. We should take both of them into account. Both the Rashba and the Rosh, we consider them both correct. Which one inspires me personally? You probably could tell from the way I explained it, I connect a lot more to the Rashba's approach than the Rosh's approach. To me, the Rosh is more practical cleanliness, okay? But the Rosh makes it, to me, is much more spiritually inspiring. That every Jew is a Kohen, and that's why we're washing our hands. Now, there is a third explanation. There's a lot of explanations. We don't have time. But there's a very important third explanation, and that is based on the Gemara in Shabbos. I think it's the 58th page, but it's also alluded to in the Zohar. And that, I'm sure we've heard of this concept, is the concept of Ruach Ra'ah. What does Ruach Ra'ah mean? Evil spirit. There's an evil spirit that falls upon a person. When does that evil spirit fall upon us? When we go to sleep. Every night. Something about the fact that we no longer have our intellectual capacities, or something about the fact that our soul is going up and down, and when it comes back into us, there's still a little bit of that evil spirit. And apparently it sticks on the corners of the body, which is the hands. Okay? And that evil spirit stays within us. And how do we get rid of that evil spirit? We're washing our hands. Water is a purifying element. So we're bringing that purity of godliness, and we're getting rid of the Ruach Ra'ah, and we're washing our hands and getting rid of that negative energy through the washing of the hands. Okay? That's also the way Rabbi Nachman Breslov explains it. If you count the words in the bracha, Al Netilat Yadayim, there's 13 words. So Rabbi Nachman says, through the midah of rachamim of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're being mafrid the klipot. We're separating the negative energies out that somehow came onto us and taking it away. Okay? There is a bit of a dispute. Is the Ruach Ra'ah because we went to sleep, or does it happen automatically? In other words, let's say a guy stays up all night. So did the evil spirit come on him because he didn't go to sleep? Or is it something about that change between night and day that somehow brings negative energy into the human soul? So we don't really know. Have a great night. And so we compromise. Actually, it's a big machlokes. What do you do if you stayed up all night? I believe the Shulchan Aruch paskins, you wash your hands but without a bracha, because we're not sure which to paskin like. And the Mishnah Berurah suggests going to the bathroom, touching an impure place, and then you have to say, and then you have to wash your hands because it was impure or dirty. And then you wash your hands, and then you say it with a bracha. That's generally the Ashkenazi practice. But in any case, These are the three main explanations in the Rishonim as to why we do Netilat Yadayim. Okay? One interesting side point, there are a lot of rabbis who write that Ruach Ra either doesn't exist today, or at least doesn't exist as strongly. And so we need not necessarily be as concerned as once upon a time about this evil spirit. Okay? Who speaks in this language? The Maharsha, about 400 years ago. The Rambam, some read him in this light. And Tosfos says that in these German lands, we're not concerned about the Ruach Ra. Okay? And there's a famous, interesting Masorah brought down by the Gra, by the Vilna Gaon, that after the Kiddush Hashem of Count Patatsky, there's a famous convert who converted to the Jewish people, and then they caught him. He was a famous church member, and they said, "We're going to kill you. We're going to kill you unless you convert back to Christianity." And he said no, and they killed him in front of the whole Vilna, I believe. And it was such a great Kiddush Hashem that somehow it nullified the Ruach Ra. And so even many students of the Gra believe that the kochot of evil spirit are no longer as strong in the world since that happened. Now this is not universally accepted, okay? And you see this machlokas when it comes to washing within 4 amos of your bed. Many great Kabbalists like the Chida and the Ben Ish Chai and many, and the Mishnah Brura write that we should be strict to make sure that we don't go even 4 amos without our hands being washed because of this evil spirit which rests upon a person. But other rabbis are a little bit more lenient, A, because we're indoors. If you're indoors, and the Shvut Yaakov says that whole Kabbalistic thing doesn't apply if you're indoors. And B, because of the Ruach Ra being weaker in our generation. Some explain, in other words, once upon a time the world was very spiritual. Now, since the Enlightenment and we're very brainy, and we kind of don't have as much space for spiritual stuff, and also the negative side of spiritual stuff, the Ruach Ra. So it's a fascinating, different argument. Some distinguish between the Ruach Ra mentioned in the Gemara and the Ruach Ra mentioned by the Kabbalists. Tov, it's a whole interesting discussion, but you should know, it's good to be strict in any case. So why not, if you can? But some rabbis are more lenient about that 4 amos thing of washing your hands in the morning.
So it's not a halacha then to do 4 amos?
It's a Kabbalistic stringency that some poskim are strict about. But I wouldn't call it an outright halacha. Halacha means something accepted by all the poskim. It's a bit of something that everyone would say you don't hurt, you don't lose. But in certain situations, it's hard. Let's say in the army, it was challenging. Sometimes it's challenging if it drives your wife nuts. When I have the 4 amos, and
you just kick the ball over.
Yeah, exactly. It happens. So you have to know. When I was a kid, I read the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, and everything I said I took to be halacha Moshe Misinai. It's good to do. You don't hurt. And the Chida will be very happy. And the Beit Ish Chai would say, why not? But if it's hard for you, you don't have to do too much tshuva. There's other things to worry about on Yom Kippur. Okay? But anyways, I want to get back to a little bit of the meaning of the words itself. Okay? Asher Kiddishanu. That itself is already, I alluded, every mitzvah, we're infusing holiness into ourselves. Asher Kiddishanu b'mitzvotav. Okay? The famous machlokas, is it better to be commanded? Is it better not to be commanded? They're both a very high madriga. To do something optionally, but it's even higher to be commanded to do something and still to do it. Because as soon as somebody tells me to do something, as a man, I want to go the other way. I want to not do it. But I still do it, and in that way I'm connecting to God. This is one of the 7 rabbinical laws, Netilat Yadayim, decreed by the rabbis. So it's an early rabbinical tradition, and I'm also proclaiming my faith in the rabbis by every day opening up my day and washing my hands. The custom, by the way, not the custom, the halacha is to wash right, left, right, left, right, left. The Mishnah Brura actually writes right for chesed and left for gvura. and it's called sirugin, right? Somehow gets rid of that negative energy, that ruach ra'ah. Why that is, I don't know. I'm not a Kabbalist, but you can talk to your Kabbalist friends and let me know. I was always curious why somehow the right, left. Maybe it's a zrizis of going, I don't know, right, left. But somehow that gets rid of the negative energy. If you don't have enough water, you could technically just do 1 and 1. But the minhag is for sure 3 times. That's just halachically. Now I want to analyze these words al netilat yadayim, because really, what should the nusach be if we were to be metaken this bracha al nekiyas yadayim, if it's about cleaning herself like the Rosh says, or al rechitzas yadayim, washing. That's normally the language used. So why did Chazal dafka change from the normal language and explain it and call it netilas yadayim, to take water, literally? It's a good question, no? Maybe never thought about it. We're doing it our whole lives, but it's good to know. So explains the Ksav veKabbalah. That is Rav Yaakov Tzvi Mecklenburg. He was a German rabbi around the same time as Malbim, defending Torah Shabbat Peh, and he gives a beautiful explanation. He says, just like Netilas Yadayim was to, if you're a Kohen, to raise you to a higher level, so now I can eat my truma, so too, every time I wash my hands, I'm being raised to a higher level. And Natla is actually a language of raising myself higher. He brings a few sources. For example, in Daniel and in Yeshayahu, the lashon of Netila doesn't mean to take, but to raise high. Okay? So that's why they didn't just say to wash my hands, but I'm changing my status, I'm uplifting my mindset, I'm lifting myself to be like a Kohen every time I wash my hands. And I think that's just a beautiful thing to know about every time we say Netilas Yadayim. A few more explanations. Why don't we say the bracha and then wash? Wouldn't that make more sense? Normally, Gemara Mesachim teaches us, we always say the bracha and then do the mitzvah over Lisiyatan. Because the bracha is here to prepare us for the mitzvah. So why here? Then we wake up, say the bracha, and then wash. Rather, we wash, and then say the bracha, and then dry our hands. What's going on? What's the pshat? Oh, so the explanation is given, just like a ger. A ger cannot say a bracha before he goes into the mikveh. He's not Jewish. Yeah? So too, I'm still impure. I'm in a different status until I wash my hands. And when you feel this the most when you're in the morning, and you really, I don't know about you guys, I usually have to go to the bathroom. So I'm in no state to say a bracha. Right? So then, I'm pure, I wash my hands, and now I go to the bathroom, then I wash my hands, and then I'm feeling ready spiritually to say the bracha. So because of that situation, the rabbis just decreed that it should be done after I do the action of washing my hands. Yeah?
Where does Modeh Ani fall? Is Modeh Ani considered a bracha?
So Modeh Ani is not a bracha. In fact, that's why it was decreed without God's name, because it doesn't have God's name. So you are allowed to say, in fact, encouraged to say Modeh Ani before you do anything else. I'll get back to a second explanation. No, I'll give a second explanation, and then I'll give you a few practical halachic tips about Netilas Yadayim, just stuff that comes up. There's a second explanation. I read this years ago, I think from Rav Soloveitchik. I'm not sure. But some explain, actually, that washing your hands is only the beginning of the process of the mitzvah. But the drying of the hands is getting rid of the impurity, the tumah. So that's actually a part of the mitzvah, interestingly enough. And so now I've completed the mitzvah by drying my hands, and then I say the bracha, al Netilas Yadayim. So that's just a good thing to know, that the drying of the hands is actually part of the whole process of fulfilling this mitzvah. Good thing to know. Now, what do you do practically? So there are different customs, halachically, how to do this. One custom is, first of all, you wake up in the morning, you say Modeh Ani, and most of the time in our generation, we have to go to the bathroom. Okay? So we go make a beeline to the bathroom because you can't do. I take it back. Some suggest you immediately do washing your hands. If you don't have to go to the bathroom that badly, wait a little bit. Get rid of the evil spirit, right? Because you don't want it on too long. But then you can't say a bracha because you still have to go to the bathroom. So then you go to the bathroom, and then you wash again 1, 2, 1, 2, 3 times, okay? And then you say the bracha on Netilat Yadayim. Okay, so that's one recommended way to do this halacha. The second, if you don't have to go to the bathroom at all, so you can just wash regularly. Another custom which is brought down by some of the poskim is you go to the bathroom, wash your hands, but don't say a bracha because you're still not ready. You're not in the frame of mind to bless. Okay? So what do you then do? You go to shul. And then, as long as there's not too big of a break between washing and going to shul, right before you go to shul, you wash your hands again, and then you say the bracha. This would seem to align well, by the way, with the explanation of the rush. Because for the rush, it's all about preparing for Tefila. For the Rashba, it's not specifically about Tefila, but rather it's about a preparation for my whole day as a service of God. So if you go with the Rashba way of doing it, it makes a little bit more sense to do it right away in the morning. If you go with the rush way of doing it, you want to do it right before you daven. It's a big machlokas. Whatever you do, you have big rabbis on your back.
If you
Asher Yatzar?
yeah. If you don't wash your hands before.
Technically, you could. You could say Asher Yatzar and then do Al Netilat Yadayim later. Oh, so you're kind of contradicting yourself because if you could say God's name for Asher Yatzar, so why couldn't you do it for Al Netilat Yadayim? Good point. Good question. I don't know. Maybe by the time you say it. Yeah. No. I think the custom is not to wait to do Asher Yatzar later, to do Asher Yatzar right after you go to the bathroom.
Can you go to the bathroom, wash your hands?
Do Netilat Yadayim and then do Asher Yatzar?
Yeah. After you do. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. You could definitely do that. In fact, that's recommended by many of the posts. That's often what I do. Okay, beautiful. A few last notes. There's a strong custom to wash little kids' hands. Just a good thing to know. By both the mystics and the brisks. Apparently, spiritually, it's very healthy. And so I have a 2.5-year-old. So since he was 1.5, that's my shtick. I wash his hands. I don't know if he knows what's going on, but it's fun. It's good. It's good Abba, Alicia time. So I recommend it heavily. First of all, to have kids, it's a lot of fun. And second of all, to wash their hands. Another thing worth mentioning is the teachings of Rav Shlomo Carlebach. So I just want to finish off with Rav Shlomo's. This is Rav Shlomo Carlebach's book on Tefila. He didn't write it, I wrote it, but I compiled his different teachings on different parts of Tefila. So I want to bring a few sweet teachings down about Netilat Yadayim to cap off our sweet night together. So first of all, Rav Shlomo says like this. Rabbi Nachman says the deepest thing. What are hands for? Hands are for reaching. How do you reach out to another human being? It's beyond giving and taking. Reaching out to God in heaven. Gewalt. The Gemara says that Hashem created the world with his hands. Maseh Yadayim. God, we are the work of God's hands. God created us with his hands. Rav Shlomo would say that the hands could reach higher than the head. Hands have the power to heal people. There are people out there who use their hands that can actually heal people through their hands. It's a certain koach. You know, there's a passage in the Zohar which is the most beautiful. Yaakov, when he prayed, he held his hands up. Gewalt. He was reaching up to the heavens. Esav, when he prayed, his hands were always down. He didn't want to reach God. He just wanted to get something from God. So our hands are there to connect. He doesn't mention it here, but by Yedid Nefesh, he teaches Yedid is Yad Yad. A friend are two hands connecting. Two people trying to connect to one another. That's the essence of a friend, and that's the essence of a relationship with our Yedid Nefesh, with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Then Rav Shlomo connects it to our relationships with one another. You know, sometimes he says someone gives you hands, someone gives you a handshake. And he's just giving a little bit of flesh. And you kind of want to just like move on. And sometimes someone shakes your hand and he's mama shaking your soul, right? Sometimes when a person gives you that hand, you feel like he's really, really expressing his connection, his love, his desire to connect. So we wash our hands in the morning. We're reminding ourselves of our ratzon to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and to connect to each other. And use our hands to connect to one another. By the way, Kabbalistically, I don't know the secrets, but I'll mention a few spiritual things. Hands have 10 fingers. 10 is very powerful. 10 is the Aseret Adibros. 10 words. God created the world with 10 mamarot. 10 spheres. So 10 represents completion. And we're using our hands, bringing Hashem to connect to each other, connect to one another, and to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the most complete way. That's why Sfaradim, when they say Petech Yadech Maspil Chochan, they reach out their hands to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Not just Sfaradim. Many in Sfarad have this custom to connect to HaKadosh, to the Shefa. So we should zoicha every morning to use our hands to connect to one another, and we should be zoicha to know the power of water. We were talking a little bit before of the secrets of water, secrets of Netilat Yadayim. One last teaching of Rabbi Shlomo about water. Nothing grows without water. The uniqueness of water is that it brings out the hidden potential from within the ground, right? Think about it, you have a beautiful plant, but it's not going to grow without HaKadosh Baruch Hu's water that he gives it. So what does water represent in Rav Shlomo terminology? Water is that words of encouragement, is that smile, is that love that we give to one another. Water is saying, you have so much strength, you have so many treasures inside of you. What's missing from all those people that still haven't grown, that haven't found the strength to change? They just need a little holy water. They just need one person to just believe in them, to really believe in them. And I've seen this many times in my life. Sometimes it's just one person's compliment. One person comes up to me and says, wow, that minyan that we were at. One guy came up to me after the minyan and said, wow, that was amazing. And that gave me the koach the next time to be a little bit crazier, to be a little jump up and down when no one else was jumping with me. But if that one guy wouldn't have told it to me, or someone would have criticized me, criticizing him is okay, but if it's not in the right place, I wouldn't have had the strength to do it. And it's true for everyone. It doesn't matter, the guy got to be the biggest star in the world. We all need that holy water. We all need that encouragement. I know. We all live off of that love, that encouragement, those compliments. So maybe when we're washing our hands in the morning, another kavanah we can have is that we should be that water. We should, just like Modani, as we discussed at Lent, as Hashem showing us how much He loves us, and so we should be that water in Netilat Yadayim to spread that love and give other people the strength to be the best them they can be. As HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Avraham Avinu in this week's Parsha, you should be the blessing. You be the blessing. You spread your light to the whole world. So just to summarize, what we saw tonight, Netilat Yadayim is tapping into the power of water, every single morning, recharging ourselves, recreating ourselves, tapping into the secrets of the creation of the world, and reminding ourselves that we are all like Kohanim, rededicating ourselves to do our holy service to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We studied the Rashba and the Rash and the Zohar, the three different explanations of, practically speaking, halacha l'maisa, why we do Netilat Yadayim. And a little bit we learned the historical evolution of Netilat Yadayim. And we capped off with some beautiful teachings from Rav Shlomo and Rabbi Nachman about the power of Netilat Yadayim, the power of connecting to one another, and the power of being each other's water. So we started with the Tefila, and we'll end with one last niggin to bring our Torah together up to protect all of Am Yisrael. Ay, nay, 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 bam, 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 bam. Ay, nay, 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 bam, 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 bam. Ay, nay, 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 bam, 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 bam. Ay na 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 yam bam bam bam. Ay na 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 yam bam bam. Na na ya na na. Na na ya na na ma 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 ma. Ay ay na 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 ma ma ma. Ay na 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 na. Ya na 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 na. Ay na 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 na. Did I na 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 ma ma. Na na ya ma ma. Ma ma ya 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 Shkaya, beautiful, beautiful.
It's